Meet Richard Jean So, interviewed by Trisha Santanam, Duke English Class of 2026.
Hi, I'm Trisha Santanam. I'm a senior studying English and I'm one of our department's English ambassadors. I'm chatting today with Professor Richard So, who will be joining the Department of English this fall. Professor So, it's really nice to meet you. Thank you for chatting with me today. So I'd love if you could just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about the academic topics that you're interested in.
Sure, thanks. Trisha, thanks for doing this. It's really exciting to start up at Duke and teach Duke students. I'm really looking forward to it. Yeah, my field is kind of a new field called the digital humanities. It's very recent, it's very new, and it might be new to a lot of students in English at Duke. The basic idea is that, to me, digital humanities has two parts. One is methodological, meaning that what digital humanists do is we use all these new data resources and data methods and computational methods from computer science and so forth to really leverage the fact that so much of culture and literature is now digitized, so like Google Books or stuff on the internet, and to use appropriate computational quantitative tools to analyze data at scale. And the exciting thing about this research is that you can ask new questions about literature and culture without like hundreds of years, thousands of novels, things like that. So I've done a lot of that. Other aspects, though, of my research that I'm excited about is one is I find these methods, or they're great for like things like novels and poems, but they're really good for culture on the internet because culture on the internet is inherently like massive at scale, and it's really hard to close read like a tweet. So I do a lot of work on using these methods in digital humanities to analyze online cultural platforms like X, Wattpad, TikTok, things like that. And the last thing I'll mention too is inevitably this field has been shooken by the AI revolution, particularly generative AI the last few years. So I also do a lot of work in this field called cultural AI, which is trying to understand the impact of new AI technologies on how we're creative, how we write stories, how we live on these platforms, as well as how our theories around like narrative aesthetics can influence and reshape these AI systems to make them more responsive to the things that we care about as humanities people. Yeah.
Yeah, so on the topic of, narrative, cultural platforms, we kind of see those appearing in the classes you're going to teach next semester. So you're going to teach two classes. The first is an undergrad course, The Art of Reading, Introduction to Narrative, and then you're also teaching a grad class, History of Contemporary Literary Criticism. So could you maybe tell us a little bit more about these classes and just generally what they'll be structured like?
Sure. I think in your questions you asked like the art of reading. What does the art of reading mean? For me, it means a lot of things, but one thing is the art of reading is learning how to read well and critically. But for me, what I really like about English classes, to me, it's about literacy, but in like a complicated way, meaning it's not just understanding the words on the page, it's being literate in how culture works. Because there's so much culture, like the attention economy, things like that, and they do things to us people. And so, what I feel what English classes teach, in the class I'm teaching, the art of reading, is how to be like live in this crazy world and absorb, consume all this information, all this culture that hits us like every day on the internet and other platforms. How can we have an active critical relationship to all this material? So the class I'm teaching is really focused on narrative theory because so much of what happens in the real world is like telling a story, narrative, like everything you hear in politics, everything on the internet is like who's going to control the narrative, what is the narrative. So I think about that a lot. And the structure is we're going to be reading a lot of traditional classic narrative theory stuff that is linked to traditional novels because that's where a lot of these ideas come from. So I'd say like maybe 50% of the class is really rigorous theories around narrative, narratology, looking at classic novels that exemplify these theories really well, like Middlemarch, like just a really difficult novel. But the second half of the class is looking at born digital culture because to me it's really important that my classes really meet students where they are. So Middlemarch is important, but you also really live on the internet. So we're going to be seeing how we can apply these theories around narrative to understand how does this happen, right, on Twitter, all these platforms. How does narrative live? How does it impact people? How does it shape politics, really big, important questions. So that's that class. The other class is a grad seminar introducing graduate students to the theories of the discipline. So that's a little bit more of a straightforward class. But yeah, I want to talk more about the narrative class.
Yeah, I mean, you sort of talked about, Middlemarch and these like Twitter and these different things you're going to be studying in your course, but are there any, assignments or like, prompts or things students can expect to see and kind of what materials can they expect to engage with?
Sure, yeah. Um, there's going to be a mix of traditional evaluations, so maybe 1 to 2 papers where I really like assignments where you take a theory like Barth's theory of narrative, and then I ask you to apply it to a cultural text that you find meaningful. So that's your choice. So we're going to be reading a lot of canonical stuff in class, but I care more about do students really understand the theory and can they apply it to a cultural context that they find meaningful? So there's going to be at least a couple traditional written assignments, and they're basically like take a cultural theory, take a narrative theory, and apply it to any case study you find meaningful to show me how does narrative work in this context. So there's going to be, that kind of work. I'm still figuring it out, but there's also going to be a final project that's a little bit untraditional. So it'll likely be a kind of group assignment. I know students often don't like group assignments because evaluation. I have a way to make the evaluation fair and meaningful. But the good thing about working in groups is you can do a bigger project that you couldn't do on your own. And it's going to be multimedia. It's going to be, again, working something contemporary and figuring out a format of expression, like a podcast or like a YouTube video or a TikTok, something that is both critical but also expressive, creative, because again, I think that's important for students of your generation.
Yeah, thank you so much. And finally, in our earlier conversations, you were telling me a little bit about this digital humanities class that you're going to be teaching in the spring. So I kind of wanted to just turn it over to you for a little bit. And, could you just tell us a little bit about the class and, what students might expect to see in it?
Cool. Yeah. Yeah, this is really the kind of class I think I was brought here to teach. And I think it's pretty novel for humanities, English departments. Um, and it really is meant to reach 2 kinds of students. First, primarily English students who have some curiosity around technology, coding, AI, to take a class where they're going to learn some practical, like technical practical skills. You're going to take this class and actually learn how to write code in Python, learn some statistical method, things like this. But it's going to be what I would describe as a safe context, where the goal is not to punish students to sort them into like who can write code or not, but to uh, encourage humanities students who might not have an opportunity to learn these skills to learn them in a way that it's meant to focus on the learning, not the evaluation. So it's difficult, but I provide support, and it's really not about, I don't focus on the grading. It's really just the learning. And you're going to be learning this stuff to analyze literature and culture. So whether it's novels, poems, or online cultural material, the class is basically 50% learning technical things in computer science and statistics, but the other half is reading scholarship, talking about novels and poems, and to figure out how can we analyze this stuff, this cultural material, using these new methods. So the class to me is a mixture of different ways of learning that I think can be very interesting to students. And to me, it's really for any English or humanities student who's curious about these new methods like data science, all this computer science, but wants to learn more about it in the context of studying something that they care about, literature and culture. But it's also open to students from the sciences at Duke. So any science students who have always been interested in literature and culture and are interested in like combining their expertise in the sciences, if they're like a CS major, this is the class for them to take a class where they can use their skills, but to study something very concrete and material that they find interesting. So yeah.
Thank you. Professor So, thanks for telling us about yourself and your interests. It was really nice to meet you, and, we're excited for you to be joining us this fall.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah. And for any students watching this, if you have any questions, just feel free to email me anything about the classes or about the research. Happy to talk. Thanks.